Next on the agenda is the consent items. Items that include in the consent items are those that have previously been considered by the board and committee or at prior meetings of such a routine nature that discussion is not required. Board members may request that any item be removed from consent items for further discussion if additional information is needed or available. Tonight on our consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from the regular meeting minutes of February 20th, 2020. We also have approval of the robotics field trip. If I can have a motion. Mr. Mena?
I move that we approve consent items A and B as presented.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Mena and supported by Mr. Cook. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have our action items, our personnel report. Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. This evening we have one resignation and one retirement. The resignation is Julie Bremer, special education teacher at Novi Middle School. And the retirement is David Knies, U.S. history teacher and former Novi and Oakland County Teacher of the Year. David Knies, Novi Middle School.
Can I have a motion?
No.
Okay. May I please have a motion?
It really doesn't matter if you
Mrs.
approve
Hood.
this or not.
Reluctantly, I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education adopts the personnel report recommendations as presented.
Support.
Moved by Mrs. Hood, supported by Mr. Smith and Mrs. Roney, if you will.
Tom can have it.
Any other discussion? I know. I would like to say I don't want to support this either. Both David and Julie are really top-notch educators that we are losing here in Novi, and it's sad to see one move on to new and other opportunities in her field, and for Mr. Knies to move on and enjoy his journey outside of teaching. So, but
His wife's not retired.
We will still have Mrs. Knies, so.
Okay.
okay. All right. Any other discussion? Okay.
Well, having been in DC with David, seeing how many extra students he gets, Teacher of the Year, so I guess he's going out on top. I don't know. Maybe that's what he's decided. But he is just such a fabulous engager of students that he will be missed at that school. So, anyways,
He will. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have, for information and discussion, we have the 2019-2020 General Fund First Budget Amendment.
Ms. Minnick, we would appreciate if you could preview that for us. This is information and discussion tonight, and will be brought back to the board on March 19th for action.
That's right. Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Good evening. It's my pleasure to present to you the proposed amendment to our general fund budget for the 2019-2020 school year. Tonight we will start with kind of a high-level overview, a summary of our revenues, expenditures, and fund balances. But for those of you that like to go right to that bottom line, I'll let you know now that none of the adjustments should be a surprise, and that they primarily consist of the increase in our per pupil foundation amount of $120 per pupil. It consists of settling our employee contracts that occurred this past October. It includes the additional math positions that the board approved just recently to support small class sizes, and a few residual effects from GASB 84. So we'll start
GASB 84.
GASB 84. So we'll start with that high-level look. You can see that in that first amendment column there, we are anticipating our total revenues in the general fund to now be about $79.4 million. Thank you. That's an increase to our revenues of about $824,000. We also have a projected increase in our expenditures of $1.9 million for a total expenditure amount of $82.3 million. All those together result in a total decrease or a use of our fund balance of about $2.8 million. Looking at our fund balance, if you recall, back when the board adopted the budget in June, we did not yet know what our true fund balance would be at June of 2019. At that time, though, we had projected that our fund balance would have been $10.9 million. Since that time, we had our audit, and we now know that our fund balance, as of June 2019, was $12.3 million. And that variance, that increase of $1.4 million, is primarily consisting of over-collections of property tax revenues and state aid. If you recall back in November at the presentation of our audit by our auditors, they noted that, and they also noted that in October, just this past October, the state did retrieve that overpayment of state aid, and so those things are being corrected. So back to our ending fund balance. Now that we have our audited beginning fund balance of $12.4 million, we now anticipate that our ending fund balance for this school year will be about $9.5 million. That's only about $334,000 more than we originally anticipated. And our total fund balance as a percentage of our expenditures, we project to be about 11.56%. So with that increase in our fund balance of about $334,000 and the net change in our percent of expenditures of our fund balance of just 0.14%, that really is just an incremental nominal change in our bottom line to our general fund budget. So now let's look at those in a little bit more greater detail. We'll look at our revenues. Our revenues are broken down into 4 categories: our local revenues, our state source revenues, our federal revenues, and then what we call our incoming transfers, which typically are between the ISD and the school districts. So you can see we anticipate an additional $876,000 in our local revenues, a net decrease in our anticipated state revenues from our original budget of nearly $33,000, a decrease in our federal revenue budgeted projection of a decrease of $125,000, and just a small change in our incoming transfers of an increase of about $39,000. So let's look at those in a little bit more detail. And I want to go through this slide very carefully. Looking at those top 2 lines there, you see the local sources has an increase of about $876,000. And next to that it says that's property tax, greater local share of our foundation. That next line item indicates a decrease in our state source revenues of nearly $487,000. And it's noted there that that's a reduced state share of our foundation. And we think to ourselves, my goodness, we know we got an additional $120 per pupil, so how could we have a decrease in our state share? So I wanted to walk through that with you, particularly maybe for our newer board members or the community at large. So just very quickly, recall that our per pupil foundation amount is comprised of local sources and state sources. So our per pupil foundation amount this year is $8,839. So again, that's comprised of some local tax dollars and state aid. We levy nearly 18 mills on our non-homestead property. We levy 2.85 mills or so on our homestead property, and those collection combined is our local source. So the difference between the local source revenues that we collect and the state aid amount of $8,839 per pupil, those don't match. So the state kicks in the difference. So the state makes us whole. As a result, then, when our taxable values climb, then our local property taxes climb. That means that the state doesn't need to contribute quite as much. So that state share decreases. So currently, our taxable values have grown since the time that we adopted our budget in June. So that results in a greater property tax value, or property tax collections rather, and a reduction in the state aid contribution. But yet, and I'll go over this in detail in a minute, we know that we are now collecting an additional $120 per pupil, and overall that generates an additional about $400,000 in state aid. So again, when you look at that local source of an additional $876,000, reduce it by the state source reduction of $846,000, it equates to roughly $400,000. So yes, we are getting additional money in our per pupil foundation revenues, but where that money comes from has shifted. More from local dollars, less in state dollars. So I just wanted to be sure that you understood that, because it looks really funny when you first look at it, that, oh my goodness, we have a decrease in our state aid, but we don't. We have an additional money in our per pupil foundation revenue. So in italics there, I've noted that in our original budget, We thought we might have about 40 additional students. That's what our projection has been over the last few years. But at that time, we were not confident we would get any state aid at all. But now we know that our enrollment is fairly flat, but we have an additional $120 per pupil. So again, all that combined equates to about an additional $400,000 in per pupil revenues. Some additional state source revenue is those UAAL retirement. Yes?
Can I just ask one quick question?
Sure.
I know we went over this at the finance meeting, but I understood that original budget, that we budgeted for 40 new students. Are you saying that we had 7 fewer students than the 40 that we budgeted, or we had 7 fewer students
Overall.
overall? Oh,
So our enrollment is very flat.
okay. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, thank you for that. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. So those UAAL retirement funds, we didn't know the value of that last June, but now we know that we have some additional funding there of about $425,000. But again, those are those revenues that we pretty much return right back to the state. They help offset the cost of our retirement, but we receive them and we remit them back to the state for the most part. And then we have an additional $95,000 in our categorical funding. So some examples of that is that we have additional state aid, or rather special education cost reimbursement this year. That's new in our state aid. We have an increase of 2.1% reimbursement on the prior year's special ed costs, eligible costs. But we no longer receive the high school pupil categorical, the financial analytical database revenues, and we no longer receive the computer adaptive testing funds. So all of that equates to an increase of about $95,000. And then in our federal sources, that's simply a correction in our projection of federal grant monies. Now we can move on to look at our expenditures. In front of you, you'll see on that far right column, almost every category has a change. And that's primarily because when we settled our employment contracts in October, we had a Me Too clause, and so pretty much every employee's wages were adjusted, so that touches every category throughout our budget. But to take a little closer look at those significant updates that impact our budget as a whole, if you recall when we settled all of our employee contracts, it was presented to you that the cost of those changes was about $1.6 million. GASB 84, we have an increase in our expenditure budget of $137,000 roughly. And the reason for that is because we have some multi-year grants from MEF. And before GASB 84 was implemented, we recognized those revenues and received that cash in our former student activity fund. That fund no longer exists. But yet we still have some residual grant monies available for our schools and our teachers to spend. The accounting guidance indicates that we should recognize that in our general fund. So for the remainder of this school year, we had to include that in our expenditure budget so that our teachers could continue to spend on those grants. But going forward, we will see new revenues and new expenditures as NEF grants are awarded in future years. Noted there also is an additional $120,000 in expenditures to support small class sizes in our math classes at our high school and our middle school. And then there's about $91,000 of other adjustments throughout the budget, just to tweak some projections for other categories. Any other questions on expenditures? Or revenues for that matter? Okay. So what are our next steps then? We will continue to monitor our revenues and expenditures, and we will adjust those projections as necessary, and then recommend to you a final budget amendment for board adoption later this school year in May or June. This amendment will come back to you for approval at the March 19th board meeting, and also in your packets is a copy of the resolution that we will recommend, and you also have a one-page summary document of the budget. I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Minnick. We appreciate
I do. Let's see
you
if
coming
I-
to the finance committee. So,
Just a quick question. I'm just trying to follow this, trying to paraphrase this. So,
Sure.
so revenues were up slightly, right? Well, I can't-
900,000.
Okay, so revenues were up, expenditures were up.
Yes.
But because and expenditures were a lot more than the increase in revenue.
Yes.
But because we understated fund balance initially, right? If,
We had under-projected with that. Ending fund
Under-projected.
balance would be. yes.
underprojected, we're gonna still, even though expenditures are higher, we're gonna end up with a higher fund balance percentage than we projected initially.
Yes, we will, but it's very small. That difference there is just the 0.14%.
You'll recall back in the fall, when we did not settle with the teachers, part of that decision was that we wanted to know what our ending fund balance was going to be and what the revenue from the state was going to be before we settled. And so after we got those numbers, we were able to settle a budget that we presented to the board that we felt continued to preserve our fund balance, but also rewarded our teachers and our staff with salary increases. And so that's why we waited until October to settle with all of our employee groups.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, just thank you for all your hard work explaining all of this.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms.
Mrs. Minnick. Okay, next up, and that was for information and discussion, that will come back to
Yes.
the board, correct?
March 19th.
Yes. So next up, we have our contract award, Technology Design Services. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. With the recent passage of the 2019 bond proposal, the district will be undertaking approximately $25 million of technology projects over the next 7 to 8 years, requiring the services of a technology design firm. The district previously engaged Integrated Design Solutions, IDS, to provide technology design services for projects funded by the 2014 bond program through a competitive bid process. Because this was a successful partnership, the administration approached IDS to gauge their interest in extending the 2014 contract to provide technology design services in connection with the school district's 2019 bond program. Administration sought a proposal from Integrated Design Solutions with terms, conditions, and market competitive fees in conjunction with IDS's bid for the 2014 bond design services. This proposal was reviewed at the February 19, 2020 Capital Projects Committee meeting. District administration, in conjunction with Capital Projects Committee in Plant Moran Cressa, the district's owner's representative, believe IDS's proposal of 4.5% with anticipated fee of $870,000 over the course of the 2019 bond project program is market competitive, meets board policy, and is consistent with their 2014 proposal with inflation considered. Integrated Design Solutions fee percentage is fixed for the duration of the bond. PMC's recommendation and IDS's proposal letter dated December 2nd, 2019 are attached. The recommendation for technology design services is submitted to the Board of Education tonight for information and discussion, with awarding of the services to Integrated Design Services at the March 19th, 2020 board meeting. Ms. Minnick is here to answer questions if you have them, or we have Kevin Donnelly from Plant Moran Cressa who could also answer questions for us as well.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Does anyone from the board have any specific questions for either Mrs. Minnick or Mr. Donnelly? Okay. It's very quiet around here tonight, now that all our friends left.
We believe this is a good proposal for the district that continues a good partnership that we had with IDS, and we think that we'll be able to move more quickly because they know our buildings, know our technology,
As
know
you
the
say,
needs that we have.
they know what we have
They
and.
know what we have.
How long have we used them? Do we know?
2014, we started with them. I don't know if we used them before then or not.
I would have to look at that. I can let you know that.
Well, I think we
We
did possibly use them before that. I mean, I can't remember using.
We may have used them on a per project basis. maybe.
Right, yeah, that's what I
And I
mean.
know we did a lot of things in the 2007 bond that maybe they were involved in.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll get an
Anyways.
answer to that.
Yeah, just curious, but, yeah, longstanding, like you said, they know the district, they know what they're doing, and it's very consistent with the way we've approved the other contracts, so I'm comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thanks for
Minnick.
being here, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Not a problem, thank you.
He loves coming to our board.
At least we had chocolate-covered strawberries tonight.
You can take a couple home to your boys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah. All righty. Next up, we have comments from the audience. Another opportunity for comments from the audience related to anything that is in the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. Seeing no one coming forward, I think that we will move on. Okay. Committee reports. We have the Finance Committee met. Mrs. Hood?
Yeah, the Finance Committee met yesterday or the day before?
Tuesday.
And Ms. Minnick reviewed the presentation that we just had, plus background information with more detail. We discussed the that GASB 84, even though it's a small part of our budget, and the fund balance maintaining as close to 10% as possible, and really just the switch in the revenue sources. So she went in more detail what we talked about this evening, and I think we were all comfortable coming out of that. And
Yes, we were.
Yep. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for the report and all your work at the committee level. Any questions or comments? No? Okay. Moving on. Superintendent's report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Dr. Ruskin. There's been a lot of publicity about the new strain of coronavirus, COVID-19. In our district, we have sent out 2 letters to our parents, created a web page to share information, and that is located in the community tab on our website and the student health link. We have redirected custodians in our buildings to focus on cleaning and disinfecting hard surfaces multiple times during the day. Those would include doorknobs, desks, cafeteria tables. We are in the process of getting hand sanitizer in prominent positions in each of our buildings, typically at the entrance to our buildings and the cafeteria in the media center. We have canceled some out-of-country trips. We had 2 trips planned over spring break that we have canceled, and we're working with those families to ensure that they are made whole by the cancellation. We are requiring students who have visited countries on the level 3 warning list to stay out of school for 14 days once they leave that country. There is no simple answer to this question at this point. We do not believe that closing schools or stopping local field trips is the right answer at this time. We will continue to monitor the situation, and we will continue to update our community regularly through the use of School Messenger and our website. I would like to extend congratulations to our 2 teams that played last night in state playoff competition, the Novi High School girls basketball team and the Novi High School boys hockey team. Their performances were outstanding last night. Unfortunately, both teams lost, but they both played incredibly well. And so I would like to extend my congratulations to them for great seasons, and hopefully we have 1 wrestler, as was noted in the high school report, that's in the individual state finals starting this Friday, I believe. And we also have the boys basketball team will be going into district play next week as well. We also had very good performances from our POM team and our cheerleaders, and so we just appreciate all the time and effort that our student athletes give to our school. And that's my superintendent's report tonight.
We appreciate you. Thank you. Next up, we have the administrative reports. Mrs. Mitt, do you have anything else?
Just one thing.
Okay.
Just want to let the board know that I had a very productive meeting with Julie Farkas earlier this week. We continue to just discuss different things that we learned around the district. We wanted to update each other on how we thought the new cafe space was working out of the library, both from a perspective of being a new work site for adult transition students, but also how she felt about the provision of food service by Charthouse, and we both felt that that was going quite well in all of those regards. She senses a very strong reception, a positive reception by the community and their patrons to that new space. We also talked about the distribution of library cards, and she wanted to pass on thanks to Gary Kinzer for assistance with getting library cards into the hands of our students throughout the district, and she reported that that program is going very well. We also continue to collaborate around the traffic on 10 Mile Road and the congestion that happens at the start of the school day, but also dismissal, with our parents and community lining up in the library lot for pickup and such. So we want to remind our parents to use our pickup lots at the high school and try to avoid parking at the library. But we continue to work on that because traffic on 10 Mile is quite heavy all times during the day. So we continue to work on that. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Minnick. Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you. Our 5th Mentee Monday of the year will be next Monday, the 9th. We will be providing our Tier 1 mentees with some reflection time on their mentoring experience as well as just their first year in the district or in some cases the profession, and also providing a preview of what they can look forward to when they advance to the Tier 2 level in their mentee experience. On the 16th of March, we'll be attending the Eastern Michigan University Job Fair, so that's our first job fair of the year, followed by 3 job fairs in April. And last evening, I was unable to attend Honor Society induction because Mr. Gordon requested some additional administrative support at the hockey game. And I just want to tell you what I saw. So we played a really, really talented team. And our kids were amazing. Dr. Matthews understated what they were phenomenal. They were playing the #1 team in the state, and we were one hop away from winning the game. I was very impressed with how hard our kids played and how well coached we were. And I also want to comment on our fans. Our students were incredibly spirited, but at the same time very respectful and cooperative. And it was a long evening, 3 overtimes, but it was very enjoyable.
We could have made it over there after that thing to see the end of it.
You could have.
I wish I would've known. Oh, yeah, fantastic.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And also thank you for all the work you've done with the NEF for Teacher of the Year.
Thank
So
you.
I know that's a lot of, effort to go into that and to the culmination of the day yesterday. So we
I
appreciate
would
you.
really extend that to Kathy Donovan and Sheila Holly, who really drive that work.
Great. Thank you. Next, we have an opportunity for board communication. Mr. Mona.
At the Rotary meeting today, there was a presentation done by Kristen Corin on the Novi Adult Transition Center. Actually, I've learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know. So, I won't go into a lot of details. I did mention to Trustee Ruskin that we should probably schedule her to come before the board. I think it would be a presentation that would really be pertinent to us. And I think folks would probably enjoy learning a lot of stuff that I had no idea was going on there. And the talent that some of these kids had that I had no idea about was just incredible. Some of the stuff that she showed us that they've been making. So other than that, been attended color guard competition last weekend. Both of our teams, I think that was done an announcement earlier today, did very well. And was at the girls basketball game. Yesterday we were broadcasting from courtside, so we enjoyed doing that. Didn't end up how we had hoped, but boy, I tell you what, wasn't quite the game that hockey had yesterday. But I can tell you, I probably can count on one hand the number of girls basketball games I went to when I was in high school, and in the last 3 years I've done a ton. I'm telling you. I've seen some really, really good girl basketball players in this league. We have some fantastic athletes in the KLAA. And since we sit over on the visiting side when we're broadcasting our home games, I get to meet a lot of the parents. And it's funny because I see the same ones coming in year after year because we do JV and we do basketball. But I'm telling you, there are some just incredible girl basketball players in this particular league. So again, certainly we don't get a ton of fans to come. We don't fill up the gym like we used to do when we were in high school, but certainly very entertaining basketball if you have some time to come out and watch. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mena. Any other board communication? Mrs. Roney?
I had some fun.
Good.
It was funny, you're talking about the seniors, or the public library, and today I'm at work, and one of my coworkers is like, oh, my grandmother's, she's at Brookdale, which is a senior assisted living right out in Novi up, and they're coming to the Novi library tomorrow. We weren't sure what for, but the only thing that they talked about is she is so excited to go there because there is Starbucks.
Oh my gosh.
They are like all her friends and everything. They are just so excited.
We should probably warn them that they're coming.
Starbucks. I have no idea what time, but Starbucks. Okay, but on a serious note, I mean, that was serious, but went to the robotics open house. It was amazing. I mean, to listen to these kids, like the elementary and this level and that level, and the process they talk about, how they go through these things. I mean, I sit there and looking like, I could have done that in high school. You know, and what the high school kids are doing is just amazing, you know. And so that's kind of near and dear to my heart. And of course, you know, talking to the parents, you know, there's some equipment that we really need, and so they are so, like, just chomping at the bit, you know. Everything that they need, you know, to, like, the metal to be cut, the CNC machine, we have to go to Farmington to do that. And then me and Bobby were at, okay, and I know I'm going to screw up the school, so a high school in Ann Arbor.
You're
And,
high
yeah,
school.
you know, and you know, we got to see the 3D carbon printer, and I guess they printed several things, and I don't know if that was in Farmington as well. It was somewhere, but they had to get several parts, you know, printed out of our district. And then, of course, they sent me pictures of different robotic spaces, and like in Farmington and some other place, and it's like, wow, you know. So I'll stop. Other than I did drag my husband, and of course he got cornered because, oh, we've been trying to get a tour at Fanick, you know. So that they've set one up, I think, for May or June. But okay. And then I did the band pre-festival concert, and oh my gosh, do we have talented? I mean, the orchestra, the band, I mean, just wonderful. And of course, like maybe like 20 minutes into the concert, you know, here's the band conductor going, "Hey guys, snow day!" You know? And so all the kids were like, "Ah," you know. And he's like, "Okay, but I want you to can't practice 12 hours tomorrow." You know, because they had the festival coming up. So obviously it worked.
Yeah.
And then last night, the the National Honor Society ceremony was just wonderful. Seeing the, you know, the amount of kids that are willing to do the service and everything is just wonderful. And I had a couple of, you know, people that I recognized when I went out to not eat cake, but were there. And they were like, "Oh, it was great, but why didn't you guys shake hands?" Because I guess for the past, you know, up to a million years, we've always shook hands. But, sorry, the comments I got though, but wow, look at the time. And so they were all ecstatic that they seemed to think it went quicker because we didn't shake hands, and then we all took turns handing out their certificates. So just a thought, they kind of liked it. So, and that's, I'm done now. So,
Thank you. Mrs. Murphy, you go first. We'll come around the table. It's very
Okay, I just want
OCD
to
of
touch
me.
briefly, it did go faster last night, that's what I said. But part of it was because they were walking across the stage very fast while they were reading as opposed to standing, because they used to just stand there while they read it, and then they'd wait for them to walk over, and then they'd read the next name. So it was
nice.
Except for the really heavy foot things that were, I had a little trouble hearing. Was it?
The microphone was on.
yeah.
Was it? The audience did
They
not.
weren't adjusting it right.
Yeah, but the audience did not have
They
trouble.
couldn't adjust it. Yeah, they couldn't adjust it, so.
Yeah, I thought I asked some people that were sitting far in the back, and they said they had no trouble hearing. So I think it was just us on the side, because we just fixed that. not
Because
them.
we are getting old.
Well, that's why I thought it was my ears at first, so I'm glad to hear that you were nodding a little bit too. Okay, so the Novi Mental Health Alliance met on Monday and really had cake, which was very good. It was nothing but cake. That for the celebration of somebody's retirement, but they weren't there. It was odd, but anyways, it was very good cake. But we talked a lot about the upcoming training on March 21st, which is for parents to become peers to other parents going through difficult things with their children. So a lot of discussion around kind of how to get the word out about that, how to encourage parents that have been through something maybe a little difficult to either come to the training or to come to the next training. We're only going to take 25 the first time in hopes of ironing out any kinks, obviously, but we've already had kind of parents excited and asking about when they're gonna have peers. So we really hope to be able to get some trainings going so that we can be there to support parents in our community that are challenged by various things. So if any of you have been challenged, and the list is not exhaustive, there is a list that is on the website. I would definitely encourage you to try and come to the training if you can, because I think we're gonna need a lot of people to help support families. So, and you don't have to be an expert. It's really just to come alongside, be a listening ear, be somebody that they can talk to that's already been there, because sometimes just not feeling alone is a really powerful thing. So, so that's coming up on March 21st, and that is at middle school, I believe. I think I announced it last time. Do you remember where that's at, Steve?
I do not.
Okay, that's okay. RJ's not here to correct me, which is okay. But anyways, it's being advertised pretty much at the schools and through the newsletters and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll get quite a few parents that are interested.
Great. We appreciate you and all the work that's being done there at that Mental Health Alliance. Mrs. Hood, now it's your turn.
Thank you. March 21st, that's the Green Gala, right?
Yes, well, in the morning you can come to the training. It's from
I'm not going to the gala this year. I'm missing it.
9 to noon or whatever, and then go to the gala in the evening. It'll be a full day.
Then practice your skills.
Exactly.
I just had 3 quick things. I missed the National Honor Society induction last night because I was at the Oakland Schools Government Relations Committee, which there was really nothing new and interesting. We have the governor's budget, and those were kind of their words. Nothing new and interesting.
Okay, good.
There was some little side legislation that's sitting out there. But we have the governor's budget. We have to wait for the House and the Senate's budget to figure out where we might be this year. So that was that. I went to the MSBOA. I missed the pre-festival concert, so I went to Walled Lake Western Friday night and saw the High School Philharmonic Orchestra. They were fabulous. They got straight ones in their Division I ratings and their grades. And then today I had the pleasure of going to Deerfield and listening to the other end of the spectrum for music, and saw the first grade spring concert, The Year with Frog and Toad. And those kids obviously practiced, and it was delightful. So it was really a fun afternoon. And that's it. Thank you.
The Year with Frog and
Thank you.
Toad.
The Year with Frog and Toad.
Love it.
Nothing for Mr. Hood? Anything, Mr. Smith, tonight?
Just 2 quick reminders. I know Kathy already mentioned on Saturday, March 21st is the Green Gala supporting the Novi Educational Foundation. I know that there's tickets still available. And then this Saturday at 12 noon is registration for the Novi Youth Association Bowl-a-thon. I know that there's still room for some bowlers if anyone knows anybody, or if you get a last-minute urge to put together another team. But that's it. Just 2 quick reminders.
Okay.
They signed up
We have the
officially?
winning team right here, sitting at the table.
Oh,
So we have
listen.
our cheerleader over here, myself,
That's
Mr.
right.
Meadow,
Gotta
Mrs. Murphy,
dust-
Mr. Jason Smith, and
Blow
we
the
are
dust
living
on
on a
it.
prayer. So, or a spare, sorry, we're living on a spare. I was gonna
Yeah.
say,
Still,
that
the
too
prayer
though,
thing might
right.
be more.
Yes, we're living on a spare. Yes, please.
Can I add one more thing? On the 21st, they're doing that, the Rotary is sponsoring part of it, the blankets, and I saw it.
28th,
Yes.
March 28th, the blanket day at Suburban.
I thought it was 21st.
I think it's the 28th.
But anyways, so you go and you make, they're looking for what, maybe 1,000
Yeah,
blankets?
fleece blankets for Children's Hospital.
Yeah, and you go in and you make them. I know I'm signed up, but I saw it in one of the schools, probably the high school feed. You know,
Fleece
so-
and Thank You is this called.
There you go.
Fleece and Thank You. Yeah.
So that's, if you have time, and you can go online and sign up, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of our kids there.
Yeah.
So, sorry, okay.
No, that's good. I appreciate it. I just wanted to make 2 quick comments. So March is Reading Month, and I've enjoyed on Twitter a couple of the schools in particular. I'm sure all the schools, the elementaries are doing wonderful things, but two in particular stood out to me. And maybe next time I can talk about the other ones, not to leave them out, but Village Oaks has such a really great theme. It was Go for the Gold, and they're doing this Olympics thing, and the teachers did a dance to get it kind of off and running, so that was great. And then today I noticed that Orchard Hills has a theme of Orchard Hills in the neighborhood, and it's kind of an offshoot of Mr. Rogers, and it's just really cute to see how the creativity that the buildings and the teachers and the administrators in those buildings bring together to encourage kids in literacy and reading. So I think that that's great. And then I just wanted to say, I was thinking about the agenda today and board communication when I was reading through it, and I just think that we are a great team, and it's really great to have the diversity of things that everybody is going to and interested in, and that when we come here, we're not all doing the same thing, but we're working as a team to really get out there in the community. And there's a lot going on here, and it's hard for just one person. So I think that everybody on this board is working really hard to get out there and relate to the community in different areas and different fields of what's happening here in Novi. So I appreciate you all. And that being said, Mr. Mena, I will ask for a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
I was going to ask for a roll call vote, but I got confused. So I'm going to ask you for a motion. How about we do that?
And I'll second.
Okay.
You're on the board.
So we have a motion from Mr. Mena and support from Mrs. Roney. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.